We're in day number 5 of what has to be one of the biggest scandals or scams the comic book collecting community has ever seen. The CGC reholdering scam that's been coming to light in the last few days is continuing to develop and change, and that's what I want to talk about today. There's been another Incredible Hulk 181 that's been identified where a qualified book was swapped into the holder of a universal grade, a blue label book, and then sent off to be reholdered. So let's take a look at this latest book that has been identified by members of the community, and we'll get you up to date with this quickly changing story. But before we go ahead and jump into the latest development of the story, let's go ahead and start from the beginning, give some credit to the people who brought this story to light at the very beginning, starting with the 9.9 newsstand on Instagram. This post of theirs has been seen numerous places, numerous channels. It's been shared a whole lot because they kind of broke the story. This was the first indication that there was something wrong here. And it all started with these 2 copies of Amazing Spider-Man 252. One of them being legitimate, one of them not. The scam originated whereas they were both marked as being Mark Jewelers variants. Now, we all know every Mark Jewelers variant is a newsstand, but not all newsstands are Mark Jewelers. So what it appears has happened is the seller had cracked open this 9.8 and then replaced it with this straight up newsstand, not Mark Jewelers 9.8, somehow resealed the case and then sent that imposter book to CGC to be reholdered with this custom label. The custom label seems to be a common element in a lot of these books, so we're not sure exactly where the breakdown in this process happens, but that reholder process seems to be the key to everything. That is where the books are passing from the seller through CGC and essentially being legitimized at that point where they are official. You know, once CGC gets the books, accepts them, reholders them, you can't tell any difference. It is a certified CGC book just like any other book. So the question is, how is this guy doing it? We don't have those answers yet, but kudos to the 9.9 newsstand for starting this party, kind of kicking it off, bringing to attention to the community what they've seen. And from there, got guys like Swaggle our buddy Swaggle, of course, did a video on this the other day, just covering, bringing some additional attention. I know he did a follow-up video as well. Then last night, Automatic Comics, he was going through, just digging through some of the sales from the seller, and he actually was able to locate a CGC 9.0 Hulk 181 that went through the same process as the ASM 252 did, where he found that a CGC qualified 8.5 had actually been swapped out for a blue label 9.0 and then reholdered with a custom label. So that's a similar story to what we're going to cover today, but shout out to those 3 creators, then also the West Coast Avengers for the work they've done as well on getting information out about this scandal. Let's hop back in. The information I want to share with you today, most of all of this comes straight from the CGC chat boards. This is a very old school part of the community. If it's not something you're familiar with, it is just what it sounds like. It is a old-fashioned internet chat board that CGC has maintained since they started way back in the early 2000s. And it goes crazy sometimes. And this is definitely one of those instances. Earlier this afternoon, I made a comment, and within just a few hours, the size of the thread had doubled. It's now over 50 pages. It would take you a whole lot of time to sort through all this. But what I want to start with here is from board member Comic Wiz. About 6 hours ago, he posted that he thought he'd found another example of a 181 that had been switched out with a green label going to blue. So we see his post here from about 6 hours ago. He followed that up. He was gathering some photos, trying to make sure that what he thought he'd found is actually what he found. And he winds up gathering some photos. Now, they're not the best here. He does not have access to go collect. So some other board members, then for the sake of this video, myself, have also gone through and helped him out. So this is the resulting book. This is a book that was sold by this seller, and it was sold for $6,211 on October 17th. You know, it looks like your everyday run-of-the-mill 181. Nothing too crazy. The only problem is, so we've got a close-up scan here. The only problem is that book and this book are the exact same book. That's a problem. I think the easiest way to tell it is you can look alongside Wolverine's forearm here. There are 4 very distinct color breaks, spine pops there. Then also alongside this black arrow above Wolverine between the little Hulk decal, there's a very distinct color break in the red between the Hulk and the black arrow, and then another distinct color break in the red to the left of the arrow. Furthermore, you can also see the miswrap. You know, it's pretty much a solid white line all the way down, and there's a little bit of distinct peaks in the edge wear on this bottom edge. So you've got 1 spot, 2 spot, 3 spots here. So again, that white misfold carries all the way up. And then kind of the last thing I noticed is you've got a widening of the line. It's like the black kind of doubled up when it was printed along this left edge. So that is the qualified grade. And as you can see from the notes here, the whole 10th page is missing. So it's not just the Marvel value stamp, the whole page was torn out. So this is an incomplete book. When we jump back over here to the blue label, 8.5 with that nice custom Wolverine label, we get to looking, well, here's our double inked black line at the top. We've got our distinct color breaks here by the little black arrow. And this is by far the better picture, so it's a lot easier to see here. We've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 color breaks alongside Wolverine's right arm on the right edge. We also have the continuous white line down the edge of the book. And then we've also got the 1, 2, 3 distinct spots of color rub there on the bottom edge of this book. So this is pretty clearly, to me, the exact same book. So another example where we've identified the book that was sold, presumably in a deceitful manner, as a blue label, this 8.5, when we know that it was actually originally a green label. That's a problem. This green label was bought in June of this year. It was a best offer from eBay, so it was listed for $2,500. The guy paid less than the $2,500. He, did his little thing that he does, and it wound up selling for $6,200. So he's making some good money on this scam, and I don't know another word to call it. It's deceitful, and let's not kid ourselves. There have always been some unsavory characters in the hobby, but this is a very egregious example of the worst of the hobby. You always have to be mindful of things like this, but you also don't want to get jaded and just assume everybody's out to screw you. But it's examples like this where you're reminded that you've really got to mind your P's and Q's and just really make sure everything's on the up and up. Trust your gut. If what you're looking at doesn't feel right, it might not be right. So sometimes walking away and having no deal is better than making the wrong deal. This is another graphic that somebody cut together on the boards. Pretty helpful, where you can actually see the books side by side, and you can again just pair up a lot of those defects to where you can tell that it's very clearly the same book. Now, further down the boards, we had board member Thon Amon, who pulled some of the sales history from the seller at hand. And as you can see, there's some pretty big books listed here. So we've got a Mark Jewelers Secret Wars 8, a Mark Jewelers ASM 252, Mark Jewelers New Mutants 98, a Canadian price variant of Amazing Spider-Man 238, so Hulk 340, another newsstand 238, newsstand X-Men 266, ASM 309.8. Some of the other comments in this thread indicated there were just tons and tons of ASM 300s that this guy has sold over the course of his time on eBay. Again, that doesn't mean everything he's ever sold is not legitimate, that it's, you know, a fake book or a misrepresented book, but it does call into question, you know, every single thing this guy sold is extremely suspect at this point in time. So if you did happen to buy something from this guy, be sure and check it out. Really look it over the best you can. It may be worth contacting CGC and seeing if they will take the book in and take a look at it for you and help you determine if what you've got is what you think you've got, what it was originally represented as, or if it is something else. So as you can see, no shortage of high-end books that have gone through this guy's page. A board member named Agamotto, he went down the rabbit hole. He is a user of WorthPoint. It's a site that's just eBay sales history. And what he found was really disturbing. He's like, there were over 1,200 listings he found and just hundreds and hundreds of high-grade books, as his comment says here. Tons of Spider-Man 300s. The username he looked up there, he said went back to 2015 in this comment. In a later comment, it was revised to 2016. But what was found even further as he kept digging is that the seller had switched names or had sold under a different name as far back as 2011. Here you can see some of the earliest listings that he had. So you've got a second print Batman 608. You've got the white Ultimate Spider-Man 1 variant. And of course, more ASM 300s. So this guy out of the gate had always gone towards pretty high-end books. And worst case scenario, we've got at least 12 years of potentially suspect sales, suspect books that are floating around coming from this single source. Another piece of information that Agamotto brought forward as he was diving into this seller's history is that in his listings, he routinely used the same verbiage. And that's one of the ways they were able to link the 2016 account to the 2011 originating account, is that this dealer always used the line, in quotes, $3 the money, and hard work has already been done for you, end quote. This was just his sales pitch. One last piece of information that Agamotto brought to this thread that I thought was interesting. He actually was able to find and rank the seller's biggest sales throughout their sales history. At the top is a 9.8 J. Scott Campbell Wolverine 1 variant for $17,000. As you can see, we've got multiple Hulk 181s. We've got an ASM 129. We've got a retailer exclusive Batman 608 signature series. That was a $9,000 book. So this guy has dealt in some pretty pricey books over the years. And I hate to think how much some of these buyers stand to lose if what they received was in fact a misrepresented book, if what they thought they were buying is not what was delivered to them. So that is an unfortunate thing to think about, and I don't envy any of those sellers in the least. Now, what we do know is that this is not over. There's so much information coming out, and just everybody's kind of piling in, doing their part, trying to surface whatever information they can pinpoint or identify books that have been swapped out as we're able to dig through. I mean, Go Collect has been bogged down tonight as everybody's in there, presumably diving into this, trying to identify some more books. But this is a fast changing and developing story. And as of the recording of this video, we still haven't heard anything from CGC. There has not been a peep officially from them about this. And honestly, that's probably to be expected. Right now, it's late in the day on Thursday evening. Tomorrow being the Friday before the Christmas holiday, it wouldn't surprise me if we hear nothing about this until after the holiday, or if we do hear anything, I suspect it will be very brief, very late tomorrow, when it's very easy to bury things. With the weekend, with the holiday, it seems like a situation that they really are probably like a duck on the pond right now. They may seem calm up front, but I guarantee you below the surface, they're panicking, and rightfully so. This is a big concern. It's a major issue if the whole point of the product you offer, the service you provide, is that you can guarantee and verify that what you're selling or what you're grading is authentic, that it is impartial, that it is legitimate. If that's your whole spiel and somebody's figured out a way to end around that, a way to defeat your security measures, your tamper-proof case, then you got a big problem. So I can't blame them for being a little nervous and honestly just hoping the situation goes away. So stay tuned. This is, like I said, a developing story. We are sure to hear more information, learn new things as the days and hours pass. And maybe at some point down the road, we'll figure out, how this was happening, how it's going to be fixed. And CGC can tell us how they're going to restore the faith in their product that up to this point we thought was fairly tamper resistant. In my last note, if you want to know more about this, if you're curious who the seller is, what else has been discovered, there's plenty of information out there on the internet. All you have to do is just dig in a little bit and you can learn just about anything and everything you want to about this situation. I've seen a lot of comments in some other videos, some other posts about this topic that nobody's naming names. There are people naming names and it's not hard to find. So if knowing who this seller is important to you, fire up the Google machine. It's not going to take you very long to figure it out. Everybody have a great weekend, collect responsibly, and I'll see you in the next video.